Hey guys, it's Ewan here. I have over 5,000 hours in Rust, and I just wanted to show you guys my settings, and I really do believe that I have the best settings out of anyone that plays this game. I spent a lot of my time on this game just testing out settings, trying the best stuff for my personal computer and what works for me. Um, and I will also be showing my favorite personal F1 commands that are still very useful, still very viable, and that still work. And then after that, I will be showing how to change your resolution on NVIDIA. So if you have an AMD, this video will still be very useful for you, but uh, it's going to be different to change your resolution, obviously. So I'm sorry about that, but I will also be showing you in depth on why I believe each setting I use is important, how it benefits me, and why you personally should use it. So, just like that, we'll get right into this video, not waste any of your time. Thank you. Alright, you guys, to get into this video, we'll start with our gameplay. So, you're going to want to play on max field of view, mainly because you just see more, really. You don't want to play on a lower field of view, so this is this is max the game allows you. So this is 90, and then so I'll show you right here with this character or this AI. So look closely on that AI. I can see it perfectly with 90, 60. You can barely see it. You lose a lot of vision, or that's actually 70, but you still lose a lot of vision. It used to be better because with the old recoil, it would kind of lower your recoil a little bit because it'd be more zoomed in. Head bob, you're going to want to use off. It'll just make your game feel a lot smoother. It'll reduce FPS also. And then this is personal preference crosshair. You're going to want to I personally turn this off only because I do use Crosshair X. It is on Steam. This is not a sponsor, obviously, but it's very good. There are a lot of crosshairs, and a lot of pros and streamers use this crosshair. Alright, so next, hit marker. You're obviously going to want this on, so even if you don't hit someone, it'll still play the audio, but personally, I think it just looks very nice. And then game tips, I would turn this off. If you're a newer player, obviously leave it on, but personally, I don't really like it, so you can turn it off. Hurt punch, you're definitely going to want to turn this off. This is you do not want this on. It'll just shake your camera. You don't want any camera shake on any game, to be honest. So bag gifting, I have this on anyone just in case I'm like talking with someone on a server and they want to bag me at their base or something like that. Show building block zones. As you can see in this video up here, it's very useful to have this on because when you build a base, you don't want to know, you want to know if you're building too close or something. Like let's say you want to set up externals later and you set up a base and you didn't know how close you were to the building zone, you won't be able to set up those externals. So obviously you're going to want this on. Show ranges. This is actually a new setting they added. I like it a lot. If you place like a shotgun trap, it'll show where that shotgun trap can see, so I think it's very useful. Show building preview. This is also a new setting. You don't have to have this on, but I like it just because sometimes I play with, we all have teammates that aren't very smart and they aren't very good builders, so you want to see if they're placing the right stuff. Show IO arrows. This is going to be good, just electrical wise. It'll know if you're doing power out or power in. It'll help. And then I would definitely recommend having your snapping on advanced. I personally haven't tried this simple, but I would just leave it on advanced. It's a very nice feature life setting they added. Nudity, because I record videos, I have this on underwear, but it's personal preference. It won't hurt your FPS to have it on anything. I have hide signs on also because I am a streamer. And then show blood, you are going to want to have this off. Basically what this will do is if you get shot, you'll have blood all over your screen and it'll just basically mess up all your vision, so you definitely want to have this off. Sensor recordings, I personally have this off. I've never really had an issue with it at all. Internet audio streams, I also have this off. Never had an issue, so it's not really that big of a deal. Steam nicknames, yeah, so Steam nicknames, I just have this on, not really that big of a deal. Rich presence, you can just turn this on, not really that big of a deal. Streamer mode, I would only use this if you are streaming, obviously, and you don't want to get stream sniped. other than that, it'll just hurt you in every other way. You do not want this on. Hide direct messages, again, only if you're in streamer mode. And then this is a very important setting, so max Gibbs. You're going to want to have max Gibbs on 0. So basically what this will do is, let's say you turn this on max and you blow through like a stone wall or something, it'll leave a bunch of like little pieces that'll block your vision. So having this on 0 will take all those away. So you definitely want this on 0. It is very useful for win rating. And then upgrade effects, I have this on off. It just kind of hurts your FPS. I don't really care about the effects, but it's personal preference, to be honest. RGB lighting, RGB effects, I have it off. And then brightness, obviously because I have it off, it doesn't matter. Alright, now audio settings. So I have my master volume on max, and then I have my menu music volume on 0, and then both music's on 0 because I don't really care for the music. The game sounds is very important, and I'll show you why. So let's say you turn this on max, and then you decide to hit a headshot. So that headshot's going to be very loud, but the lower you turn your game sounds down, the higher the headshot sound is going to be. So listen now. It's a lot louder. If you turn this on 0, you'll have no in-game sounds, obviously, but your headshot will be on max. Very loud. It's just very loud. So personally, I like this on 6 just so I can hear everything around me and then have the increased headshot sounds. Voices, I would recommend turning voices on just so you can hear if someone's talking in game. Instruments, I have this off just because I'm in UCAN and I don't want to hear the people with their instruments. Voice props, I've never really even heard anyone use voice props. It's very rare, so I just have that on off. Speaker mode, I have on stereo. I would just use it. It's the most recommended one I've seen out of every person who's ever done a settings video. Screen. So this says 1920 by 1080, but I'm actually on 1440 by 1080, but this won't affect it at all. It'll just matter based on what your monitor settings are, and then I would definitely recommend full screen. It'll give you a lot better FPS. And then your max frame rate. So basically, it doesn't matter how good your PC is. It matters how good your monitor is. So let's say your monitor, you have a 4090 and you only have a 165 hertz monitor. That monitor will only be able to show 165 hertz. It won't be able to show anything above that. So there's no reason on putting this over what your monitor is. And you could put it, 1020 over just because. So let's say you play on 120 hertz monitor. All right. So then you put it on 120. You could be fine putting it on 130 or 140 just so it'll cap and it won't frame drop. But personally, I play on a 240 hertz monitor and I have a very good graphics card. So I put mine on 240. VSync, you're going to want this off. This just messes up everything. I don't even know if you guys want to try it. I would only recommend using this if you do have screen tearing. And even then, it might be worth it to just deal with the screen tearing. This is an awful setting on every game. Limit FPS and menu. You could turn this on. I don't really care about it that much because it doesn't really affect my computer. And then in background, you do not want to turn this off because what will actually happen sometimes is, let's say you go AFK in a server. When the FPS drops, so if I have it on 240 and I'm sitting at 240, if I have FPS limited in background, it'll probably change it to like 60 or 30 when I tab out. And what that can actually do is it can actually crash you, and it's happened to me a lot of times. So I would not recommend turning that setting on. Graphics, this is a very important setting. So you want your render all the way max, and then I have my shaders on max. You could turn these down, but it'll just make your game look a little washed out. But personally, if you have a good graphics card, you should be good. NVIDIA DLS, you definitely want this off. It's not really a good setting. Even with performance, it just isn't. It doesn't really even affect performance, unfortunately. It's just not a really good setting. DLAA, it's also just not a good setting. You can see right here it says it may reduce performance, which means it definitely reduces performance. So definitely do not turn that on. NVIDIA Reflex is actually a great setting for NVIDIA. I would recommend either on or on plus boost. Personally, I use on plus boost just for the extra FPS. It's really a great setting. Latency markers, you just want to turn this off. It doesn't really do a whole lot, to be honest. It kind of just is like a measurement setting. and it's not really that worth it. Pixel light count. So you want to have this on 0. It'll boost FPS. You don't really want... So obviously you want your game to look good and look visible so you can see other players, but you do not want bad FPS when you're in a gunfight. It's just really, you just don't want it at all. Alright, and then soft particles. Actually, we were on particle raycast. So again, you're going to want this on the lowest. It'll just mess up your frame. It's not a good setting. Alright, moving on. Soft particles. You want this off. It's just not good. It's never been good. It's recently added. Just don't turn it on. Trust me, guys. And then draw distance. I have this on 1,000. I would not recommend turning it up over 2,000. It'll really mess up your FPS. But it is a good setting because it will render in stuff. So technically, if you have this on max, you'll be able to have the max render distance, which could be good. Personally, I don't really think it's that good though, because I can see from way over there. I can see 300 meters with this. And if you see someone from over 300 meters, it's just not really going to help you that much, and it'll just lower your FPS. Like, you're not going to be getting in gunfights with people that are 300 meters away, 300 meters plus, so it's just not really a good setting. And then water reflections, you want this off. It'll just lower FPS. It'll make your water look better. As long with the water quality, it'll also make your water look better. You actually want your water on the lowest settings, because it's way easier to find weapons when the water quality is at the lowest. Grass shadows. This will also make it easier to find weapons and bodies that are stuck in the grass. Grass displacement. I personally like this. I don't have any grass to test this on, but it just kind of moves the grass around when you walk, and I think it's a pretty cool feature, and it doesn't really lower FPS whatsoever. Precise terrain billboards. You definitely want this off. It messes up your camera. It's just not good. Alright, moving on. Textures. I have mine on half resolution, but this is also just, it depends on how good your computer is, right? So I have a 4070, so that's a very good graphics card, very high-end graphics card. Even if you do have a 4090, which is very rare, very little people have those, I would still probably only use half resolution. If you have any lower, try quarter, try maybe 8 if you have a very low-end computer, but half and quarter is definitely where I would stay. And then this filtering, I have mine on per texture. I don't really mind it on disabled. Basically, it just changes the textures, makes textures look better, so I have it on per texture. Anisotropic filtering. So this is a very bad setting. It makes things sharper, and as you can see right here, large performance impact. If something says may lower performance, it does. If it says large performance impact, it'll just destroy your computer, so you don't want to use that. Parallax mapping, it also has a higher performance impact, so we're going to turn that all the way down. Graphics quality, we're going to leave this on 1, or shadows quality, I'm sorry. You could turn it to 0, but I personally like a little bit of shadows. I think it makes your game look very good. You see how I shoot and there's a shadow behind it? There's a kind of, the bullet kind of, stays in the ground. I like that a lot, and that'll help. Your shadows quality will help with that, so I personally like that a lot. Alright, moving on. You have shadow resolution. I have this on medium. If you have your quality on 0, you're going to want to turn this on low. And then I kind of have it, so I have mine on 1, so I have it on medium. If you have it on 2, you're going to want it on high. And then if you have it on 3, you're going to want to have it on very high. Anyways, shadow mask mode, I have this on shadow mask. It's just kind of a mid setting. It doesn't really do that much, so you're going to want to put on shadow mask. I would not put on distance because, again, it will lower FPS. And then for cascades, I have it on 2. It increases your shadow distance, so it also just increases your distance, so you'll be able to see players from further. And then your shadow max distance percentage, you're going to want to have on 0. Max shadow lights, you're going to want to have on 0. And then graphics quality, I think this is the most important setting. So personally, I think the game looks very good and very playable with everything just fully on 0. And I actually do not mind how the game looks when it's this low. So I just turned everything on 0, and then I turned this distance on 1. You could turn on 0.5. It won't really make that much of a difference on your FPS, but everything you're going to want to have in the lowest possible. You could turn this to 0. It won't really affect that much. Next thing, image effects. Anti-aliasing, you're going to want to have this off. High quality bloom, you're going to want to have this off at a lower FPS. Ambient occlusion, off at a lower FPS. Sharpen actually is the one setting that has no performance impact, and it just makes your game look a lot nicer. So I would definitely recommend turning Sharpen on. And this, you could turn this on. It's just it darkens your screen. So if you're in like Oxums or something, and it's already a very dark place, it'll just make it a lot darker. Even though it has no performance hit, I just would not recommend it. Depth of field, this is you need to have this off. Basically, I'll show you guys. So this is what my game looks like. Depth of field, it just makes, you see how blurry everything looks? It makes things that aren't like, you see that character in my bottom left? Look how blurry he is, and then look with depth of field off. So it'll just make everything less blurry, less washed. So I would definitely turn this off. Lenster, you're going to want to turn this off. It'll just add things to your camera that aren't needed. Motion blur, this is you need to have this off. It's very awful. So let's say you're just moving, everything's normal, then you turn motion blur on, and then it kind of blurs everything as you move, and you do not want anything in your game blurred at all. God rays, you're going to want to turn this off. It just adds, light. It's just a very, kind of useless setting. You're not going to want that blood overlay. You're going to want this off. It's also, when you take damage, you'll bleed all over your screen. Hurt flash, it's just going to put shit on your screen. It's just not good at all. Do not turn these on. Trust me. User interface, this is all personal preference. Only one I would recommend would be your FPS counter on advanced plus ping. As you can see in the bottom left there of my screen, you can see my FPS, and then you can see my ping, and that's definitely something you want to know, because when a server's lagging, you want to know if it's your ping or the server, and you want to know, if your FPS is going down, just everything about it. So, all right, next, show chat. I have this on. It just shows chat. Mute global chat. So this will, if you turn this on, and then you have this on, it'll just be team chat. Auto switch chat channels off. Block emojis off. Block emoji animations. I have this off because it'll actually lower your FPS, and I don't really care about the emoji animations. Sorry to burp. Block server emoji off. Interaction crosshair mode I have it on default. Show use bind off. All of this off. It's not really that useful. And then inventory player model, it'll just show, so this is my player model, and then if you turn it off, I have no player model. So that's all it does. It doesn't lower or boost FPS depending on what you have it on. It's just, I would just recommend turning it on. Player name tags obviously on. Compass visibility on. Death markers, you definitely want to have this on. If, let's say you die somewhere, your body didn't get looted, you need to find your body, you're going to want to know where you died, obviously. Numbered map markers, this is, I would recommend having this on. It lets you just put, your 5 pings up with names and stuff, which is very useful. Default map marker color, I have it on random, don't really care about it. Version text on allowed Discord provisional account. I would just turn this on, because I already have my Discord linked for Twitch drops and stuff. Alright, controls. I would recommend having your mouse sensitivity very low. I used to play with it on 0.1, but I have it right here on 0.2. Aiming mouse, you can just have all these on 1. It'll just move, like, I'm barely swiping my mouse here on 0.2, and it just moves so fast. I don't know why Rust is like this, where the mouse sensitivity is just so strong, and I don't even play on a high DPI. I think I play on 800 DPI, and it just moves insanely fast. And then movement, always sprint, obviously off, and then I would obviously have these on hold. Dismount speed, you can just turn this on 0, and then you can just turn all of this. This is all preference, so it doesn't really matter. Keybinds. The only keybinds that I have, I would not recommend using auto walk. I will show you an auto run F1 command, that, because you don't want auto walk, you don't want to walk like this, you want to run like this. So I'll show you guys how to do that. I have my, I have my last key, my last item in my slot, bind to my mouse button. So I have two mouse buttons. Another one is an F1 command that I'll show you, but not this one. So I have this. So let's say I'm picking up like mushrooms or med kits or something. I have this right here, so I can just click it on my mouse without having to reach all the way over to my 6. And it'll auto do it without moving your gun in your hand. And then I have my head look on Alt. And then that's right here where I have this. I still have it on 6 just in case, but I have it on my mouse 3. And then another one I want to show you guys is hover loot. So I have this on G. And then I have my map on H. I think it'll automatically put it on H and then it'll make your map G. I would recommend changing this because when you're hover looting, you want to do it as quickly as possible. So, and you want to be able to move around like while you're looting. So you want to have it on your closest possible button to your finger that won't mess things up. So I would recommend G. And then all this doesn't really matter. Instruments, obviously, doesn't really matter. Accessibility, I'm not really going to go through with this. Doesn't really matter. I mean, I would just turn these all off. I haven't even really messed with this. I have it on, no issues. And then these, you can just make these whatever. Though I would recommend changing your tree marker color to either blue or orange because it's more bright in the night. I would very recommend blue. Health bar, none of this really matters. Just, none of this matters. I changed my holo side to blue. I like it a lot more than red, mainly because there's not a lot of things in Rust that are light blue. So, like, you would not want to change it to green because it would kind of just take up, like, if I'm aiming in the forest, it would kind of just take up your whole entire crosshair, so you wouldn't really want that. And then gesture wheel, obviously, who cares? And then I turned my buffer on max, almost max, and then all of this off, on, max, off. Alright, so that's going to be all the settings. So now we'll move on to the F1 commands. Alright guys, so now we're going to be going over my F1 commands. Sorry if this video is a little long. I just want to be as useful and as helpful as possible to you guys. Hopefully this is a video that you guys watch and you kind of just get, set for life. Like, you never need another settings video again. So that's why this is so long. But if you're still sticking around, I really do appreciate it. Hopefully you can drop a sub. I'd appreciate that so much, guys. So thanks so much. Let's get right into these F1 commands. Alright, so my first F1 command that we're going to use is, so basically what this will do is it will change your zoom in. So this is what it looks like. I have mine set to my mouse button, but you can bind it to whatever you'd like. So basically, let's say I'm looking at someone, and I don't really like doing this when shooting because obviously, it'll just mess up your recoil a little bit. So let's say I'm looking at someone. I can just click my mouse button and it'll instantly give me more vision for a second while I hold it. So as long as I hold the mouse button, it'll just give me more vision, which is very good. So you obviously want as much vision as possible, but you wouldn't want to do it at the cost of having, not being able to see your corners. So that's why this is such an amazing setting. And then for the next setting, it's going to be your sprint key. So you could just go into your F1, put your sprint key, and I personally have mine on Z, so you can just hold Z, and it will auto sprint for you. It is the most useful command, I think, on this list. It's a very useful command. It works while swimming too. It's very nice. And then my final F1 command is going to be your kill bind. So I personally hate, especially with this new options, going into here, and I don't even know where it is, but your F1, right here, so your respawn. I hate that. And I also hate going into F1 and just typing kill. I also hate that. So what you can do is type bind any letter and then space kill. I have mine on K because it's as far away, so I have to intentionally press it. I can never accidentally press it. So if you just press that, it'll just F1 kill. It's a very great command. I definitely recommend it. It just makes everything a lot easier. Alright guys, so now I'm going to finally show you how to change your resolution. So, you want to open your NVIDIA control panel. It's just typed exactly like this in the top left. You just want to type this into your search bar, open it, if you have NVIDIA. If you don't, I'm sorry. So now you want to go to change resolution, and then what you do then is you click customize. So you'll see this with all your available resolutions that are just automatically given to you. If you don't see the resolution you want, you just click customize, enable resolutions not shown by display, if you ever lose your resolution that you're looking for. Anyways, so in order to make one, just click create custom. And then personally, I like 1440 by 1080. I've also played on 1080 by 1080. I just didn't really like it as much. So you just want to put this, you type in here 1440 by 1080. And then you want to type in your monitor's max refresh rate. You don't want to go over because your monitor won't be able to handle it. And then your scan type, progressive, if it's not already on that. And then everything else should be automatically set for you. And then you can just click test. And it'll say duplicate for me because I'm already on this. So that's how you create it. And then, so when I first created this resolution, I had an issue of having 2 black bars on my screen. In order to fix this, you just want to go to, I believe it is this setting. Yeah, it is. So it's adjust desktop size and position. You want to make sure this is on full screen. So you want to put your resolution that you want on, set it to full screen. So make sure your hertz are max, make sure your resolution's max, and then it'll still say your monitor's native resolution on there. And then that is it. That is everything completely done. The best settings tutorial ever in all of Rust. Thank you guys.